Uh, Good afternoon. Uh, our topic for today, um, I will be briefly first discussing what this paper is going to be about. So this paper is a GE paper that you guys opt for, and the paper is called Delhi Through the Ages. So in this paper, we will be looking at the history of Delhi from the earliest cities, in some cases the mythological stories, the city of Indraprastha, Lalkot, the city of Kila Rai Pithoda. Now, some of these names may be familiar to you if you are from Delhi, and we are going to talk about the place, that we live in, the city, the state that we live in, largely in this paper, and we are going to talk about its history, right from the earliest times, I should say, as far as the paper allows us to go. And we are going to talk about how the city evolved, what are the changes, what were the newer constructions, the monuments which were built in, largely, during the Sultanate period, and also after that, when it becomes the Mughal capital, and then ultimately it becomes the colonial capital, the capital of the British in India. Uh, so this paper is, titled as Delhi Through the Ages, and that is what we will be looking at. What was Delhi initially, and how there were these different cities of Delhi which were established at different points of time by various rulers who ruled over this region. Um, a few things which I just want to mention at the beginning of the class is that this is the second class. The first class was on the topic Indraprastha. This in today's class we will be talking about Lal Kot and Kila Rai Pithoda. These are the two important earliest cities of Delhi that we'll be talking about in today's class. Uh, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A section on your dashboard. Please raise your questions there. The material for this would be available to you. The SL material is enough if it is available to you. Apart from that, there are a few books and articles that you can refer to if you want to read extensively on this subject, but I don't think it's really needed as far as scoring marks in this particular thing is concerned. But if you're interested, I'll definitely let you know about a few articles and books which you may refer to and read about if you're interested in the subject. Okay, coming to the topic, Delhi Through the Ages, and today's topic is Lal Kot, and we will be talking about these two cities of Delhi, the Lal Kot and Kila Rai Pithoda. One was established by the Tomars in Delhi. Lal Kot was established by the Tomars in Delhi, and the second is the Kila Rai Pithoda is the one which is established by the Chahamanas, or whom we now call as the Chauhans. So Delhi में Tomars का भी rule रहा है, Chauhans का भी rule रहा है, and after the defeat of Prithviraj Chauhan, that is when the sultans, when the Delhi Sultanate is established, and then the Delhi becomes the capital of the Delhi Sultans, and then we have Siri coming, the city of Siri, which was being established by Alauddin Khilji, and then Tughlaqabad, and before that Mehroli, the Qutub complex, where the slave dynasty, the constructions of by the slave dynasty. So a longish history. Uh, Today specifically, we are talking about Lalkot and Kila Rai Pithoda by the Tomars and uh, by the Chahmanas or the Chauhans. Now, giving you a very, very brief introduction, because we missed the first class, and I'll try to have the first class with you soon. We'll try to fix up if we can take the first class on Indraprastha again. But today I can't talk about it in detail because that needs a different lecture, full lecture. But briefly to tell you about it, Delhi has had a very long history. There are evidences of prehistoric settlements in Delhi. So it has been a prehistoric site. It was a very rich, remains or evidences of from Paleolithic time period, Mesolithic time period, Neolithic time period, Chalcolithic time period. Now, these are all, if you are not aware about history, if you are not really, because you guys are specializing in English, I believe. So this is the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic are the stone ages, and the Chalcolithic is when there is use of copper and also bronze within the cultures which were there. So the evidence of all these have been found at various levels in Delhi. So that means Delhi was inhabited but, for a very, very long time. So it has that right from the prehistoric times, Delhi had been inhabited. There were people who were staying in this region. And then it was, it was the capital cities, the areas around were the capitals of one of the Mahajanpads, the 16 Mahajanpads which are established. The Kurus were in the region of south of Delhi, from Mathura to Delhi. So that is the region where the Kuru Mahajanpad would have been. And the Indraprastha, which was the capital of Kuru, would have been Delhi. So Indraprastha was the previous lecture, which we have missed, but we will try to have it maybe at the end of this series of lectures when we complete the course towards the end of it. Uh, so after the Indraprastha, we move on to a there's a long time gap. Not that there were no settlements in Delhi, the people stopped living in Delhi, but there is a long time gap, and we move on to roughly around the time period of the middle of the 11th century. That is when the Tomars started ruling over Delhi, and so it is the Tomars who built the Lal Kot, and after that, after the Tomars, it was the Chauhans, who are also called as Chahamanas, who defeated the Tomars and became the rulers of Delhi. And they are the ones who constructed Kila Rai Pithoda. And after the Chauhans in 1191, there was first Battle of Terrain, in which between Mahmud Guri and Prithviraj Chauhan. In that battle, the Prithviraj Chauhan won the battle. In the subsequent year, 1192, is when he lost the battle and he was ultimately killed. There are various versions of this story. You may have heard about this piece called Prithviraj Raso. We are going to talk about it. There are various versions about how Prithviraj was killed. So this is basically, broadly to tell you what we will be doing today. Now, before I begin, I want to show you a few pictures of what we are talking about today. So I believe some of you, those who are from Delhi, may have heard about this place called Suraj Kund. It is now in Haryana. It is not in Delhi. So Suraj Kund is Suraj Kund and the neighboring areas. There's also an Anangpur dam near Suraj Kund. There's another dam called as Anangpur Dam, and that is the region that we will be talking about today. And also, where is this Lal Kot that we are talking about? This Lal Kot is near where near the Qutub Minar, Qutub complex. So this entire region of Sanjay Van near from JNU to Qutub Minar, that is where these remains are there of this city of Lal Kot. And Kila Rai Pithoda is towards the north of the Qutub complex. That is where the area between Saket and Qutub complex. That is where the Kila Rai Pithoda, the whatever remnants of the walls that we have now, we do not have the entire structure. We have only a parts of this fort which was there, and that is where it is located. So many of you, I believe all of you would have heard the name Lal Killa. Now, Lal Killa to us is the Red Fort, right? The Red Fort, which is there in near Chandni Chowk, built by the Mughals while they were making Delhi the capital, etc. But the original Lal Killa was this Lal Court. In fact, Lal Killa was, as Rana Safi has pointed out, was not even called Lal Killa. जो मुगलों वाला Lal Killa है, that was not even called as Lal Killa at that time. So the original Lal Killa of Delhi was this Lal Court, the first fortress wall that we witnessed in Delhi. Uh, and we will be talking about it today. I wanted to show you a few pictures, just to familiarize you with what are the areas that we will be talking about today, and and then I'll begin. Just a minute, I'll show you the pictures, and these are just Google images. You can also go back and just Google, so you will be able to see these images. Um, okay, I believe you can see my screen, my Chrome screen, and this is the Suraj Kund. So it is a semicircular lake kind of a structure, a semicircular reservoir rather, which is between Delhi, and it is now in Haryana. It is in Faridabad district of Haryana, and so this is the earliest. This is the region that we will be talking about today, the Suraj Kund. There's also Suraj Kund Mela, a fair which is organized every year by Department of Tourism of Haryana. And this is Lal Kot. Now, this is Kila Rai Pithoda. This is not Lal Kot. I would want to. So this one, this here, if you look at this image, this is Lal Kot. This is if you take a walk through Sanjay Van if you enter it from the JNU side, and if you leave, if you walk right till Qutub Minar, that is where this structure is. It is called as Lal Kot. This is the original Lal Killa of Delhi. So this is the structure built by the Tomars, and the Killa Rai Pithoda here. This is a structure which was built by the Chauhans, the Prithviraj Chauhan and the other Chauhans which ruled over Delhi. I also, we will be talking about a place called Annangpur. So let's just see what comes up when we talk about Anangpur. So this you see is a dam. This is again near Suraj Kund. This is the Anangpur Dam. This was constructed both to block the rain water which would pour in the rainy season, to block that water, so that the water could be used for irrigation purposes. Now I'll be coming back. Okay. So these, I showed you the pictures because these are the regions, these are the places that we'll be talking about in today's class. So I thought it would be better to, look at these images before we begin. Now, what are the sources by which we write this history of Delhi? What are the various sources that we have encountered? I will be talking about some of those sources also. The early medieval period, this is the time which is called as the early medieval, would be somewhere around the 6th, 7th centuries. The early medieval period saw the rise of a number of ruling clans in North India, which are collectively described as Rajputs. And these Rajput clans were of various diverse origins, and their rise to power can be connected with the expansion of agriculture, agrarian settlement, and the state formation in these areas around. Now, out of these various Rajput clans, there were two clans, the Tomars and the Chahamanas, or the Chauhans, who are associated with Delhi. There is a 17th 17th century, right? I'm coming 1,000 years later. 17th century Persian chronicler known as Ferishta, Muhammad Qasim Ferishta, who recounts a legend current in his time. So 17th century, there was this legend about the founding of Delhi, that who founded Delhi. This is a story which is circulating in 17th century. There was a pious, brave, and generous king named Dhilu or Dilu. He built the city of Delhi, which came to be named after him. In the 40th year of his reign, Dhilu was taken prisoner and confined to the fortress of Rohtas by Fur, a prince of his own family and governor of Kumaon. Fur is described as an adversary of Alexander, going by the name, and perhaps he is identified with Porus. Various versions of this legend of the king Dhilu are available, are found in other medieval accounts. But however, along with this tradition, Delhi was founded by this king called Dilipa. Dilipa is this king of the epics who does not really have a very sound historical base. It is mentioned in the epics that Delhi was established by a king called Dilipa, but we do not really have many evidences, historical basis to establish this fact. There seems to be some historical basis for the accounts which connect the founding of the city with the Tomars and the Rajputs. Now, the legends about the Tomar kings, particularly, about them being the founders of Delhi, for them being the first ones to establish the city of Delhi, are preserved in the Bardic tradition. So I will be talking about inscriptions a little later because we have also encountered a few inscriptions. There are inscriptions in various parts of North India, also in Delhi, which talk about how Delhi was ruled by the Tomars and by the Chauhans and then by the Shakas. So there are inscriptional evidences also. But the first I'm going to talk about is the Bardic tradition. Bards are basically people who sing the glories of the kings, etc. So they basically move from one place to another, singing these folk songs and singing the songs of about their patrons if they really have a patron. So this bardic tradition, which was prevalent at that time, tells us about how Delhi was established by the Tomars and the uh, and the Chauhans, how the Tomars established this fort at Lal Kot, fort called the Lal Kot, and also the Killa of the Chauhans known as the Killa Rai Pithora. Uh, so this is preserved in the Bardic tradition, and this is also found in many of the other medieval texts. Abul Fazl, for example, Abul Fazl is the chronicler. He is the court historian of Akbar. Abul Fazl states, explicitly that the city of Delhi was founded in 1429 of the Vikram era, which is the 371-72 AD, by the Tomar king known as Anangpur. So this is what Abul Fazl is saying. Abul Fazl is the court historian of during the time period of Akbar, and he is saying that Delhi was founded. The city of Delhi was founded by the Tomars in 371-72 AD. And the legends which connecting Anangpal with Delhi are recorded in manuscripts maintained by the Bharts. Uh, who are the traditional genealogists, of India, Bharts, जो family history लिखते हैं, of various generations. So these legends are also found there. Um, Alexander Cunningham, who was the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, in his reports makes special mention about the records of the Khargarai, a Gwalior Bhat, who lived in the time of the 17th century Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, and this Bardic tradition gives various confused versions of the stories of this Raja of Delhi being defeated by the Shak rulers. That there was a Raja of Delhi who was defeated by the Shak ruler, who in turn was defeated by a king named Vikramaditya. Now, this Bhat Kharg Rai states that the city of Delhi was deserted for 792 years after Vikramaditya, and was so for 792 years there was nobody who ruled over Delhi, and the city of Delhi was totally deserted and was repeopled. There was the next establishment or in Delhi was made by the king known as Belan de Tomar, who is identified, who is identified with this Tomar ruler known as Anangpur I that we have just spoken about. Now, the descendants of this king Anangpal continued to rule over Delhi until they were defeated, and displaced by the Chauhans under Bisal De. Bisal De is the Chauhan ruler who can be identified with Vigrah Raja IV. Vigrah Raja IV is one of the Chauhan rulers who is called as Bisal De in the records of this Bhat. The earlier part of this narrative does not seem to have any historical basis, but the latter part, connecting that the Tomars with the founding of the city of Delhi, and them the Tomars being displaced by the Chauhans, seems to have a real historical basis, because we have found other evidences which corroborate the fact that yes, there were Tomars who ruled over Delhi, and after the Tomars there were there were the Chauhans who became the rulers of Delhi. Chauhans defeated the Tomars, and finally the Chauhans are defeated by the by the by Mahmud of Ghazni. Just give me a moment. I wanted to show you another image of. Okay, maybe the image. Now there are these. So Delhi has been excavated quite extensively. So Delhi was excavated for its Paleolithic remains, for its Mesolithic remains, for its Neolithic remains, and about the time period that we are talking about today, there was an excavation which was done in 1991 and 92. So 1991 and 92 is when the area of Lalkot and Kila Rai Pithora was excavated by the Archaeological Survey of India, and a numerous important things came to light during this excavation work. So I will be talking about this excavation also in quite shortly. Now, some of the details recorded in the traditional and the Bardic histories are also found in the inscriptions. There are various inscriptions, I told you. There is a 12th century inscription which refers to the Chauhans, which is found in a very, very small town in Rajasthan. It is not found in Delhi. So there is an inscription which is found in Rajasthan which talks about the Chauhan king Vigrah Raja as the conqueror of Dhilika. That there is a Chauhan king Vigrah Raja who has conquered Dhilika. A few other points connected with the history of the city are mentioned in 4 other inscriptions of the Delhi area. Now there is a 13th century inscription at Palam, at a Bauli found in the Palam village, which is in southwestern part of Delhi. There's a area called Palam near the airport, which records the construction of a step well. Step well is the Bauli by Uddhara. Now Uddhara is a householder of Delhi. So this is the second inscription. The first one we have found is from Gujarat, is from Rajasthan, which mentions that how the Chauhan ruler Vigrah Raja conquered Dhilika. The second inscription that we have is from a Bauli in Palam, which talks about how a step well was constructed by this householder known as Udhara. In the third line of the same inscription, it tells that this is the land of Haryanika. So that is where the modern name probably Haryana of the neighboring state Haryana comes from. So it says that it is in the lands of the Haryanika which was first enjoyed by Tomars. Now this is what the inscription is saying. The inscription which mentions that this stepwell is being made by Udhara, who is a resident of Delhi. The same inscription says that Dhili is a place which was first enjoyed by the Tomars, then by the Chauhans, and still later by the Sultans, who in the inscriptions are called as the Shakas. They are not called as as sultans. उस इंस्क्रिप्शन में उनको जो है वो शाक कहा गया है, शाक रूलर कहा गया है. The 13th line of the same inscription is also interesting. It gives the name of Delhi as Yoginipura. तो दिल्ली को उसमें योगिनीपुरा भी किया गया है, giving us another ancient or early medieval name to the cities of this, taking the city back even further, because this name of Dhilika or Delhi as Yoginipura seems to take the history of Delhi even back further. A 13th century inscription found on a stone tablet at Sonipat near Delhi, which is one of the districts, adjoining districts of Delhi, records the construction of a well named as Swarnaprastha, and tells us that in its first two lines, the inscription tells us that Dhilika in the Haryana country was ruled successfully by the Tomars, by the Chahamanas and the Shakas. So ये जो सोनीपत वाला इंस्क्रिप्शन है, ये भी सेम चीज कह रहा है कि दिल्ली के ऊपर पहले तोमर्स ने रूल किया, फिर चहमनाज मतलब चौहान्स ने रूल किया, और फिर उसके बाद शाकास ने रूल किया. So two inscriptions, one from Palam and the second one from Sonipat, is telling us about the same thing. Now there is another inscription which is a 14th century inscription. Now 14th century is when Delhi is ruled by the Delhi Sultans. There is a 14th century inscription which is found in the Sarban village. Sarban village is near the Raisina road, where you have your parliament and the PMO office. That is where the Raisina road is there. So there is an inscription which is found from there, which records the building of a well in the Sravala village by two merchants, Khetala and Petala. Khetal and Petal are two merchants who have constructed this well in this particular village. There is another, account which matches the Palam Bauli account. Palam Bauli, which tells that how Delhi was enjoyed by Tomars and Chauhans and ultimately by the Shakas. And this account is called the Delhi. It is called the Delhi Museum Stone Inscriptions. So this account is from the Delhi Museum Stone Inscriptions, and it says that it uses the term Turks instead of the Shakas. So like the Palam Bauli inscription uses the term Shakas for the Sultans, for the Delhi Sultanate rulers, this inscription, known as a Delhi Monument Stone inscription, used the terms Turushk or the Turks instead of the term Sultans. Now, Sarvala village is described in an inscription located in the Pratigana of Indraprastha. ये जो सरगना विलेज है जहाँ पे हमें ये इंस्क्रिप्शन मिला है, वो रायसेना हिल्स वाला, ये बोला गया, उस इंस्क्रिप्शन में बोला गया है that this particular village is located in a parigana, which is a pargana, an administrative unit within the city of Indraprastha. A 14th century stone inscription found from Narayana in Delhi. Narayana is still a place in Delhi, West Delhi. वहां से भी एक 14th century का inscription मिला है that records the construction of a village by a person known as Sridhar. That there is a person known as Sridhar who has and refers to the great region of Haryana, wherein lay the city of Delhi. So this inscription from Narayana says that there is a city of there is the region of Haryana, and there is a city called Dhilli in this region. It also describes Nadayana. The Narayana, the Narayana is pronounced as Nadayana in that inscription. So this Narayana is this region. When we go from Delhi, if you're going from Dhola Kuan, you go to Delhi Cant, and then that is where the Narayana village is and the Narayana region is. So wahan se we have found an inscription which talks about how there is this region called Haryana and how there is a city called Dhilli in that Haryana region. So various inscriptions, bards, bardic tradition. So just a few minutes back we spoke about this bard which Abul Fazl quotes, and he says that how there was a city of Delhi which was established by the King Bisaldev, the Chauhan King Bisaldev, who was the Vigrahara. Now, if we talk about the overall map of Delhi, as we know it today, most of these regions that we are talking about are located in the south of Delhi. So they are either located in south of Delhi, or some of them, like the Suraj Kund Lake and the Anangpur Dam, are now a part of Haryana. Coming specifically to the Tomar Rajputs, because this was to tell you what are the various sources that we have for studying the uh, history of Delhi about this time period. Now, talking specifically, I'll talk about the Tomars, and then I will be talking about the Chauhans. Just give me 1 minute break for 1 minute water break, and then we'll start. By the time, if you have any questions, you can ask in the Q&A section. I see there's already too many questions here. I shall quickly look at the questions that you have raised. But yeah, I'm talking about history, not really telling you a story. Lal Kot and Lal Killa are different. Lal Kot was built by the Tomars uh, in the middle of the 11th century. Tomar were one of the Rajput clans who built the Lal Kot, which is near the Qutub complex, जो South Delhi में है. Lal Killa was constructed by the Mughals. That we are going to come to after a few classes. We are going to talk about Lal Killa and Shah Jahanabad as well. But Lal Kot is different from Lal Killa. But I was telling you I was comparing the two because I was trying to tell you that Lal Killa was the Lal Killa of the Mughals, जो Red Fort है Mughals के द्वारा बनाया हुआ, that was never really called the Lal Killa. तो original दिल्ली का जो लाल किला है वो लाल कोट है. That is why I was making I think I wasn't able to clarify that. पुराना किला नहीं है बच्चे. लाल कोट जो है मैंने बताया कि वो मेहरोली के पास है, कुतुब कॉम्प्लेक्स के पास. If you are logged in from your cell phones, maybe you will not be able to see the image, so please log in from your laptop or your computer device. Okay, just give me one moment and go through the questions, and then I'll quickly come back to the Tomars and the Chauhans. Okay, it seems like many of you can't see the picture, so no point sharing the screen then, because अगर दिख ही नहीं रही है, so what is the point? Okay. About the WhatsApp group, one of you please who can make a WhatsApp group, please share the number. I'll publish the number to others. Only somebody who is comfortable sharing the number should do it here. And I will ask everyone else to send a message on that number. You guys create a group and then I add me to it. Right now, there is no group, WhatsApp group for this. So any one of you who wants to make a group and is okay doing that, please share your number, because everybody would then be messaging you and you will have to keep on adding more and more people, and then maybe add me also to the group. Okay. So talking specifically about Lalkot and Tomars, coming to it now. Now, the Tomars are the people who started ruling over Delhi. The origin and the early history of the Tomars or the Tuars is very obscure. They occupied Delhi in the early medieval period, probably as the generals of the Pratiharas, who were rulers of parts of northern India. So probably Tomars were the generals of Pratiharas, and later they became their governors, and ultimately they became the independent rulers who ruled over the Haryana country. Haryana is the region. Delhi happened to be part of the Haryana country. Country from their capital, and the capital of this Haryana country was Dhilika. Now, the kingdom of the Tomars may have extended from Hansi in the north to Agra in the south, and from Alwar, which is in present-day Rajasthan, to Alwar and Ajmer in Rajasthan, to Ganga in the east, the Ganga River in the east. So from Hansi, north में, south में Agra, Alwar and Ajmer in the west, and Ganga in the east. This is probably the region which was ruled by this dynasty, which were called as the Tomars, one of the Rajput clans. Writing in the 14th century, Amir Khusro has, heard a story about a king. Amir Khusro is a very important person. We are going to talk about him in the when we come to the medieval time period. Uh, he tells us a story that he had heard following story of a king named as Anangpala, who ruled Delhi some 500 or 600 years ago. This king had two stone lions, who installed, and there were two stone lions installed outside its court, and how the crows, and there was a bell there, and the crows could come and ring the bell, and later the a goat was slaughtered so that the crows could come and eat. Now, this is the just to tell you that there are evidences, evidences which talk about the fact that there was a ruler called Anangpal who was ruling over Delhi. Uh, we have, already I have referred to an inscription which talks about Anangpal, who established Delhi, and there are other stories which connect him to be the ruler of Delhi. Now, there is a village called as Anangpur Village, जो मैंने अभी image दिखाने की कोशिश की थी. That was the Anangpur Dam. Now, this village is near the Badarpur area of Delhi, and it has been mentioned at it is known to have various prehistoric sites. On these on the hillock near the village, there are ruins of early medieval fortifications and structures. The name of this village connects it with one of the two Anangpals, and there were two Anangpals, Anangpal 1 and Anangpal 2. The builder of the Anangpal 2 is the builder of Lalkot. Lalkot की जिसकी हम आज बात कर रहे हैं, that was constructed by Anangpal 2, the Tomar ruler. It was the you know it okay. So the two Anangpals ruled over this region known as the Anangpur, which is the Anangpur village near Badarpur. On the hillock near this village, there are ruins of early medieval fortifications. So there are remains of forts which are found there. The names of the village is connects it with one of the two. क्योंकि village का नाम Anangpur है, so it was either related to Anangpal 1 or Anangpal 2. Now Anangpal 2 is already we know that he was the builder of the citadel. He was builder of the Lal Kot. If it was Anangpal 1, then this would predate the settlement to around 8th century, or take it and if it was Anangpal 2, then this village was constructed somewhere around the 11th century. अगर Anangpal 1 ने किया होगा तो 8th century के around का time period होगा. If it was constructed by these fortifications were made in by Anangpal II, then it was probably built around 11th century, because that is when Anangpal II is ruling. That is when he is constructing this Lal Kot in Delhi. The over 300 meters long, strong wall of Anangpur Fort runs from the southern slope of the hill northwards to the top. And then, the fort looks a gorge on the southern side. There is also a lake known as the Surajkund Lake near it. So there are inscriptions that we have found from there also. I'm not going into those details because there is very little time. Talking specifically about the Lal Kot, the fort of Lal Kot in Mehroli was in all likelihood constructed by Anangpal II, who happens to be one of the Tomar rulers in the 11th century. The damaged parts of these early medieval fort have been, the circumference of these is about 3.6 kilometers. That is how big this fort was. And the area which it encloses is 7,63,875 kilometers square meters. So this is how huge this entire settlement was. So Delhi में मेहरौली के पास है 3.6 किलोमीटर्स का उसका जो है वो circumference है, और उसके अंदर जितना एरिया आता है that is around 7,63,875 square meters. Now there was excavation work, I told you, which was done between 1957 to 61, which concentrated mainly on the on these fortification walls, which looked at the walls of Lal Kot. The interesting discoveries of this original wall is that the original wall of this Lal Kot was built at about was built by Rubel stone till the height of about 8 inches, and after that it was built by the kin bricks. So the lower portion of the wall is built by Rubel blocks, Rubel boulders, and on that it is built by it is extended by the bricks. So it is quite possible that this construction of this wall happened in two phases, one during the time period of the Tomars, and later on it may have been extended by the sultans of Delhi. The flight of stairs which leads to the wall was similarly made up of stone in the lower section and the brick in the upper section. This suggests that the phases that the building there were phases in the building of this fortification wall. We are not absolutely sure whether the stonework belongs to the Rajput phase and the brickwork to that of the Sultanate period, but it is a possibility. We have found a single coin which has a bull and a horseman type was found during this excavation work. There were excavations which were done in the same region of Lal Kot under the direction of B.R. Mani. B.R. Mani did the excavations in 1991 and 1995, which revealed various other aspects of this citadel and the Anangtal. Anangtal is this small reservoir near the Lal Kot region only. So first excavations were in 1957 and 1961. The second excavations were 1991 and 1995. The second excavations were by B.R. Mani. Now these excavations have brought to light many important things. The first thing was that there were two cultural phases which we have been able to identify. The period 1 cultural phase belongs to the Rajputs, which is around the middle of the 11th century till the end of the 12th century. And the second period, which we have been able to identify, is the Sultanate period from the end of the 12th century to the middle of the 14th century. The first period, that of the Rajputs, has been divided into three structural phases, and the second period, that of the Sultans, have been divided into four. The pottery of the Rajput period includes various kinds of bowls, basins, lids, cooking pots, handis, vases, miniature vases, lamps. So a number of things have been found from the excavation which was done. In its early phase, the pottery included a plain, redware pottery, sometimes with a red slip, and a decorated ware with designs painted or inscribed or stamped on this pottery. In the later phases, the pottery of the later phases, there was occurrence of occasional, plain glazed ware with or terracotta core, black slipped gray ware, etc. There is a profusion of beautiful artifacts that was discovered in the same course of excavations. Notable finds are that of the Rajput period, which include a sculpture which has an elephant head god. So Ganesha idol has also been executed on a small rectangular piece of sandstone. So during the excavations of Lalkot, we have also found this small rectangular sandstone on which there is this image of Ganesha. There is also a part of a terracotta mold which has a Jain Tirthankar on it. So there is that has also been excavated. There are four other things, which have been found. There is a horseman and a bull type. Then another, terracotta glass, semi-precious stones, bangles, things made up of lapis lazuli, which is one of the precious stones, etc. All these things have also been found in the excavation which was done in this particular region. Um, it is very, there is not much I mean, due to certain reasons, due to the fact that there were large number of Sultanate period structures at the Lal Kot, very little is known about the earlier Rajput structures because uh, the excavations done by B.R. Mani have pointed out that there were two phases at least. One was the Rajput phase and the second one was the Sultanate phase. Now, because the Sultanate phase also occupied the same space, we cannot, where there are limited things that we have found from the Rajput ones. One of the very interesting things about the buildings of the second period, that is the period of the sultans, was the use of architectural and sculptural fragments of the first. So जो पहले की राजपूत के टाइम का जो लालकोट है, उसी से आर्किटेक्चरल और स्कल्पचरल रेमिनेंट्स को लेके, फ्रैगमेंट्स को लेके, जब सल्तनत के टाइम पे सेकेंड सिटी बनाई गई, द सेम वाज यूज्ड in the construction of Lalkot. Now, these included a stone which had Varaha. Varaha is the boar figure, who's also considered one of the avatars of Vishnu, and two stone Amlakas. Uh, and there are sculptural fragments that we have found from the excavations at Lalkot, which are included in the courtyard of Qutb Masjid, strongly suggest that there was a large temple complex in the area during the time of Rajput period. The Anangtal may have been associated with this temple. So this tal was associated with probably a temple which was there in the Qutb complex, a temple of the time period of the Rajputs which was there, and this tal, Anang Tal, which is near Lalkot, was probably a tank of the same temple. Now, talking about the Chauhans, the Kila Rai Pithora was constructed. The Tomars were ultimately defeated by the Chauhans. They had the Rajput clan of Chahamanas or Chauhans, and Delhi was captured by Chauhan king Vigraha Raja IV, who is also called as the Visal Dev Raja in the Bardic tradition. So the bards who sings the songs, etc., those singers, they call this particular ruler Vigraha Raja as the Visal Deva. That is the name that they use. And when did this happen? This happened somewhere around the 12th century. The Tomars may have retained some part of their domain, whatever the area that they were ruling over, they may have retained some part of it, but they had to accept the disposition up from or subordination from the Chauhans because Chauhans were the new rulers. We already know that we know that there are inscriptions of Vigra Raja 4 on the Delhi Topra pillar, which is there. So there are inscriptions on it which talk about the conquests of Chauhans from Himalayas to the Vindhyas. Prithviraj III was known as Rai Pithoda, and this particular fort, Kila Rai Pithoda, was most probably built by Prithviraj III. That is why it is called as Kila Rai Pithoda. Now, there are various bardic accounts related to this, including the biographical one, which talks about the biography of Prithviraj Rao. Uh, uh, and this biographical account is called as the Prithviraj Raso, which is composed by Chand Bardai. It tells us about how Prithviraj fought many battles and his victory over Muhammad of Guri in the first battle of Tarain in 1191, and how he died in the next battle of Tarain at the same battlefield in 1192. So 1191 is when the first battle of Tarain was held between Prithviraj III and the Muhammad of Guri, and the second battle in which Prithviraj lost the battle and he died. There are also other accounts like that of Minhasus Siraj, which talk about the defeat of Prithviraj. How there are two different stories. One that he died in the same battlefield, and the second one is that no, he was captured and taken to Ghazni, and that is where Chand Bardai also goes, and he manages to free Prithviraj and then kills Muhammad Guri there, and then Muhammad Guri's people kill Prithviraj and Chand Bardai. So there are different versions, but we know that the Chauhans ruled over Delhi, and also we have the history of Delhi written by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who said that the first floor of the Qutub Minar, which is there. So Qutub Minar has several stories. The first story of the Qutub Minar was a Hindu temple built by the Prithviraj Chauhan, and that later the Turks added subsequent stories to it. So this is something which Sir Syed Ahmad Khan is saying. He wrote a book on the history of Delhi. He's the person who's associated. He's the well-known social reformer associated with the Aligarh movement, establishment of the Aligarh Muslim University also. So Sir Syed Ahmad Khan is of the opinion that the Qutub Minar was actually a Hindu monument, and the first story was a Hindu monument, and then later the other stories were added to it by the Turks who came and started ruling over Delhi. But this claim was refuted by Alexander Cunningham. He said that there is a two word inscription which is found on the main entrance of the Qutub Minar, which refers to the name of a king called Prithvi, which may be identified with Prithviraj Chauhan of this dynasty. But it seems that this slab on which this name of this king Prithvi is written was put in place, while constructing, that slab was taken from somewhere and put it and it was added here, rather than accepting that it was a Hindu monument on top of which it was the other stories were added by the Turks. Now, more monumental evidence of Chauhan rule over Delhi is to be found in the ruins of Kila Rai Pithoda. This was a citadel which was constructed by Prithviraj Chauhan. It lies towards the north and east of Anangpal's Lal Kot. तो लाल कोट के वो नॉर्थ और ईस्ट में है, and Kila Lal Pithoda is much large. Kila Rai Pithoda is much larger than Lal Kot. Lal Kot, which was built by the Tomars, is a much smaller structure as compared to the Kila Rai Pithoda built by the Chauhans, but uh, very little fragments of these are found by the during the excavation. Exactly how large it was, it is difficult to say, because the entire circuit, entire structure is not available. We have only found various fragments, but the walls are 5 to 6 meters thick and as high as 18 meters. So, and they had gates at several intervals. There were several gates to this entire fort called as Kila Rai Pithoda. In 1957 and 58, there were excavations which were done at this site, and which gave us various evidences about the rule of by the Chauhans. And ultimately, after the defeat of Prithviraj Chauhan, this Kila Rai Pithoda was taken over by the Turks, who started ruling over this region, and they established the Delhi Sultanate. I think I will stop here. If there is any other if there's any question, you guys may ask in the Q&A section, and I'll answer that. We're almost through with what we are doing. Mm, okay, I'll just take the number of any one of you, and uh, okay, I'll publish this number. I've published one number. Uh, just a minute. Okay, so you guys can see one number in your WhatsApp. So you please message this person. He'll make a WhatsApp group, and then I will send a message to this number, and maybe he can add me as well. Uh, Lapis lazuli is a stone which was which we have found from the excavations at Lalkot. So it is a kind of stone. We have found it was also a stone which was used extensively by the Harappans to make a number of things, to make basically jewelry. Anangpal I and Anangpal II were the rulers of the Tomar dynasty. Tomars were the rulers who ruled over Delhi, and these two were the rulers who ruled over Delhi. Anangpal I ruled somewhere around the 8th century, and Anangpal II ruled around the 11th century. The Lal Court was constructed by Anangpal II. Okay, please everyone, you send a message to the number which I've shared, and this person will make a group, and you guys can add me there. Okay, thank you. I'm done with the class. We shall see you next time with a new topic. Thank you, all of you.